Please welcome a man who's in the power rotation of guests on the program, a journalist and talk show pundit and all that sort of thing. Our old friend Carl, Two Questions Jeffers. Good morning, Mr. Jeffers.
Good morning, Don. Great to see you, and you look great, too, so it's good to be here this morning.
So Tony Powell, who's African-American, works on this program, has for years, and
Yes,
you're
he has.
African-American.
Yes.
So Tony does a thing, I found this kind of interesting.
Okay.
Tony does a thing on the show here where he goes out in the street and he interviews people about various things. Like he did a thing the other day where he took Guns. You know who Guns is?
Yes.
Okay, well,
yes.
Guns,
Uh-huh.
he had a picture of Guns on a board
Okay.
and a picture of Ted Bundy, the serial killer.
Yeah.
Aaron Hernandez, he's killed a couple people apparently.
Apparently. Yeah.
And Scott Peterson, he killed his wife.
Indeed.
Okay. So he just put numbers under each photograph. And then he asked women who they would date. And the premise was, Tony said, I can arrange a date with any of these men. Who would you pick?
Okay.
Nobody picked Guns.
Nobody.
They all picked people.
People who had actually been either affiliated with or convicted of murder and killing.
Ted Bundy killed 30 people.
Right.
He got the most votes.
Right. His was convicted. That's right. He got the most votes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron Hernandez was second.
Well, I guess people like a little excitement in their
Well, they
lives.
didn't know that at the time. They just picked him on looks.
Okay.
And then,
Well, that explains it. Yeah.
but then Tony told these women who the murderers were, who the people that these people were murdered people,
Right.
and they still wouldn't. They still wouldn't opt for Guns.
Man.
So I asked Tony. I said, "Do you have any trouble getting people to talk to you?" He says, "Sometimes," which I didn't. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, if you're going out there with a Fox logo on your microphone in the middle of Manhattan,
Okay.
one of the most liberal places on the planet, the idiotic perception of Fox News is that it's an idiotic position. They think it's not as, by the way, if it is biased, it's not as biased as NBC or CBS or ABC by a stretch of anyone's imagination, and certainly not CNN. And, or that they just might not want to be on camera talking about anything.
See, I think it would be just the reverse. I think, first of all, I don't think that the average person has an idiotic perception about any of the networks, Fox or any of them.
Oh, okay.
And I think that if you walk out in the middle of the street with a microphone and a logo that says Fox, MSNBC, CNN, or whatever, that they'll come running from all extreme ends of downtown because people want that notoriety of perhaps getting there for 15 minutes or maybe a half hour.
Well, Tony says not everybody wants to talk to him.
Okay.
So I said, why do you think that is? And he thinks it's because he's black. And
That's certainly an option. I mean, that's a reason that could oftentimes be validated, but I'm not so sure that's the case.
okay, but here's the reason I bring it up.
Okay.
It's because it's something I never considered.
In
other words, I didn't consider when we assigned Tony this task. I didn't think
that would be an issue.
Well, maybe we better send somebody white.
Right.
Send Guns at Bernard because people. I just never. I didn't think it was a possibility. By any stretch of any imagination.
Well, but that's the only the only place I'd have a reservation. It's just that any stretch of the imagination. I think it's easily imaginable that there would be people who were reluctant to talk to someone because they're African American. But I think that would be overridden in most cases by the desire to be part of some type of TV thing. I mean, if you sent Al Roker out, if you sent Oprah out, the fact is that even people who maybe would be reluctant to speak to me or Tony are going to run over and try to push other people out of the line.
Sure. Right, so here's the message I got out of that.
Okay.
Was I don't think that that's the case. That they were unwilling to talk because Tony's black. But it gave me, I think, an insight into being black. Not them. And that is that Tony thinks, and perhaps all black people think this, that they think that's a possibility. So if you walk out in the street in our society, if you walk into a store,
yes,
and this happens to Tony, and it has happened.
Yes.
You go to some store across the street, go to Cartier or something, walking around. They're looking at you more so if you're black than they would if you're white.
Well, that's what
a fact of
President
life.
Obama was saying. He's saying that, I'm Trayvon Martin. I mean, he was saying that if you are African American, at some point you will be in an environment where, because you're an African American, people who are also in that environment will, in fact, react somewhat differently to you. Or if you are African American, you will be concerned or think about whether or not they are reacting differently. And I think that's what Tony was talking about.
Well, here's a way that white people and black people can get along better. And white people can better understand black people. Is to realize that.
Oh, absolutely. That's part of, the conversation.
Yeah.
That's part of what you and I do is understanding things. I mean, the experience Tony has, I don't think that would be a problem. And I think if I'm out there with a microphone and a Fox logo, everybody in the town is going to come running because of that. However, Don, as soon as I leave this building, when I'm in New York and I'm out on the street, when I'm hailing a cab, and especially if I'm not in a suit and tie, I do think about whether or not they pass me up to go to somebody else on the corner and make a judgment about it because I'm African American, and without the suit and tie on, they may not feel that this is somebody that they're as comfortable with as picking up a white fare. Now, whites don't think about that at all.
I'm saying they should.
But African Americans do, and if more whites did think about that, then there would probably be a greater heightened level of sensitivity to racial issues. And it's amazing that you brought up this, which of course I didn't know about, but I as you know, we always start off, because I certainly want to get to Syria, but we always start off our visits with something about the issue of race in the conversation, because we're really about the only people in the country that do it all the time and not just when there's a crisis. And I was happy that this morning, instead of like the last couple of months with Trayvon Martin and others, it's been mostly negative, the conversation in terms of issues about race, that I had something positive to share. That is part of what you and I do, that we don't have a forum, and I don't get the forum that often where I can bring something like this up, because it's not part of the discussion at that moment about whether there's going to be a government shutdown or what Obama's doing and so forth. But in terms of that perception about attitude, I can say that there has been some progress, Don, in America, and here's an example of it. In the 1950s, the great singer, Nat King Cole, had his own TV show, one of the first African-American to host his own TV show.
I remember.
The show lasted 6 weeks, and then the sponsors literally abandoned the show in droves. In 6 weeks, the fourth week, Margaret Whiting, and the daughter of Richard Whiting, one of the great singers of American classic songs, she was a guest on the Nat King Cole show. And Nat King Cole did not initiate this. Margaret Whiting initiated this. She, at the end of her song, walked over to Nat King Cole and kissed him on the cheek. The show was off the air in 2 weeks. They drove it out of the South. The sponsors literally said, no more, that's enough. This has gone too far. This will never work in America. This is the 50s. Let's fast forward now to 2013, and we have a morning TV show hosted by Kelly Ripa and Michael Strahan, the former defensive lineman for the New York Giants. The show made famous by, of course, Regis Philbin. And the two of them have been so wildly accepted and embraced by the American, mostly white and black, morning TV show audience, that the two of them are almost perceived like they're a dating couple. They kibitz about, they talk, they kiss on the cheek, they hug each other, and it's been wildly accepted with no controversy, and people love the two of them as a couple. And my point is only that to balance what we've been talking about in terms of negative perceptions, Trayvon Martin, even this incident with Tony, which I fully understand that perception, because African Americans have it. When I'm in a store and they hand me my change by dropping it on the counter versus putting it in my hand, my first thought is they did that out of not having enough respect for me as an African American. And my sister is always complaining that I take this to the nth degree. I will wait and see the next customer, if they're white or not, to see if they do the same thing. I mean, these are the kinds of things that we live with day and day.
Why are you hollering?
And well, I can't hear you, but can you hear me? I mean,
well, we're on microphone.
I think it's the earpiece.
Well,
because,
we're sitting 3 feet apart.
Well, I don't even know why I have this in my ear, but everybody wants that. Everybody wants me to have that. So let's make it the point again.
Well, I know what the point is, but the point I wanted to make is
Yes.
that I think it's an opportunity
Yes.
for white people. I hate white people, by the way.
Is that right?
No.
Okay.
That it's an opportunity.
Well, I guess that goes back to Tony's concerns.
No, it's an opportunity for
Yes.
white people to recognize
Right.
that black people they have to walk around
Yeah.
and think that. I mean, that's just the way it is. And also, white people have to understand too. I think that there is tremendous racism within the black community, which I know because I grew up around that. In that the lighter skinned blacks.
Yeah.
Discriminated against darker skinned blacks. I know
that
what I'm
doesn't
talking
happen
about.
as much as today as it used to. But
Well-
in fact, there used to be a caste system within the black community, and they used to call them the high yellow,
Yep.
and the Creole
Still
combination.
do. Carl, come on.
What's that?
They still do.
Well, it's not. It just doesn't exist to the same degree, Don. It really doesn't. I mean, not to the degree it existed in the 50s and 60s when that really
nothing does.
that really
No,
made
thank
a
God.
difference. But that also made a difference in how potentially your success could be because
only have
whites could bring you in.
A few seconds left.
For Syria, we only have a few seconds.
We're not going to talk about
And you're talking
Syria.
about you hating white people?
We're not going to talk about Syria because I don't care about them.
Well, okay. The
We have no
president
time.
lucked out on it. He lucked out on this. Otherwise, he was
The
headed
president is
for
awful. He's an awful president.
Well,
And
he's our
your guy.
president
He's
now.
awful. He's not mine. He's awful.
He
Well,
certainly is
mine,
yours.
but
He certainly is
He's
yours.
awful.
Yeah, well,
He's worse than Jimmy Carter.
well, I'm not. No, he's not.
Yes, he is. I gotta go. I love having you on.
It's great to be here, Don, and
Stop
it's a great
hollering. God
conversation.
damn,
Well,
stop
you know what? They should turn this
Or
volume
whatever.
down.
So-
Yeah, we'll work on that. Maybe I don't even need this earpiece.
I love you to death, baby. But
That's
come
good.
on.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that because after that criticism, I would be concerned.
You know, Bon, tell you like what the deal is. So.
That's great. That's
I
great.
love
And a
you to
good point.
death.
Thank you, Don. Thank
Carl
you.
Jeffers, 10 minutes till the hour.